In this video, we're going to dive into the details of how I created my first single fully charged under the artist label T13E. We're going to get into creating the loop and basically building the sound and kind of exploring what sound I was looking for. And then we're going to dive into creating the arrangement and trying to make it so it's not boring, convert that loop into something that has solid transitions and different features. And this is part 2 of a 5-part video series. If you're interested in watching it, I'll put the playlist in the description. And since you even made it this far, I'm going to say thank you with a little random act of cuteness. Aww. So one of the things I won't be doing is going into the details, in this video anyway, of how to set everything up. I've got an article where you can go check that out on my website, Tech-Multiverse.com, and inside that I cover all the details about setting up the controller, setting up native access, getting your instruments to play, and navigating, setting things up so that your dials and buttons, pads work. And then I go into Waveform free and talk about setting up the actual controller inside that. I'm not going to go into those details in this video, but if you don't have a controller, you can use a virtual MIDI controller to play your songs. So, but I also documented videos that I used to find my sound. Some inspiration and learning about how you use complete control and kits that come with it. The instruments that I'm going to be using came with my controller, but there's a whole free set of instruments that you can use. But the big things we're going to talk about is going from loops to arrangements and how I found my sound, and I've even covered some of that in my documentation here. But then there's also things like chord progressions where you can use the circle of fifths or follow certain patterns that I learned. And then eventually my next video is going to be about how we fine-tune the sound and get it prepped for release. That's going to be a separate video though. With all that said, let's hop right into Waveform free. I'm using the free version. I keep saying free. You don't have to say Waveform free. Now I've got my loop open here, and let's just do a quick play through the loop so you can hear how that goes. I mean, you've probably heard it, but let's get a quick play in here. Alright, and that's it, just over and over again. But listen, there's a lot of echo built into this, so it's very difficult to start it from this point. Watch how destructive that is. It gets so out of sync. So that was one of the things that I noticed when I first made this. That made it a little more challenging, but we'll talk about that in a second. First, let's go ahead and solo the first rhythm section, which if we look, just to show you, I'm not going to go into details about how to use Waveform, but you can set up complete control, drag it over to your plugin section here and drag it over here, and then you can actually use it. We're going to talk about this other stuff later. But what I'll do right now is at least open complete control to show you the instrument that I used for the rhythm. And this is my favorite instrument of all time, Massive X. And it's even gotten better now that it's got this Massive X player. I did not use that. This was not available when I created this song. But it's just so much fun to play with this instrument. And it took a long time for me to really wrap my head around how to use this. But I did use a preset, and I modified it to where I liked it. And so let's just listen to what that sounds like by soloing the track and hitting play. This is where everything started for me. Okay, so let's hop into the rhythm and look at the MIDI track itself by double clicking this, and you can see this is where you can literally paint your MIDI sounds that you're looking to create. If you don't have a MIDI controller, you can still make music with this. So this was the first part of the sound that I knew I wanted. I really liked the Massive X instrument, and I knew I wanted to use it, and that sound seemed perfect to get me rolling. So what I did was decide I needed to start creating some percussions. So let's see if we can actually listen to that here. And this is just lots of side effects to all these reverbs and everything I have going here. Hang on, let's listen to percussion isolated. And as part of this, what I did was I added the replica XT instrument. I guess it's a plugin. Let's turn it off so you can hear what it sounds like without it. It's just a very basic shaker. But this replica, when you have a surround sound system, bounces this shaker all over the room. Hopefully you can hear that if you're on like a surround sound, if you got a headset on. I was playing this in my car and you can hear it just shuffle all around you. It's really cool. Alright, so let's stop that for a second. And it just keeps going and going and going. Alright, so what I used in this case was battery 4, and I had set up some kicks and shakers and claps and things like that in here. It's really tiny UI that really sometimes struggle to see. I almost have to use accessibility tools to zoom in. But yeah, so let's move on to the next thing. So I guess we could just play both of these for a second. Let's check that out. Alright, so now you can see where that comes from. But let's shut those down and check out the claps. Alright, so here is, again, it's another battery setup, and I did find, this is where I actually created the claps, and I've got these mapped to my MIDI controller pads. So let's hit play. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about is these are sequence clips where you're able to set up your drums as a sequence, and then you can add multiple sequences. In this one, it's just a single sequence. Let's double check the perks here. And again, I actually did that with this. You can see by number 1 here that they are the same. I did create my own sequence. At some point, I'll have to maybe make a small video about that. But you can set these up. This is a MIDI sequencer, I guess. I don't really know the proper terms, but it's a MIDI track, and this is a sequencer track. Anyway, you can name these like whatever you want, and you can actually map all your sounds to your pads and everything, and you can label this so you can set up like a template to start with. And that's one of the things I'm starting to learn now that I'm starting to develop my sound. We'll see. EDM isn't always what I'm gonna make. But we won't get into the equalizer just yet. That'll be a separate video because that has to do with fine-tuning the sound for distribution and making sure everything's clean. But so let's get into the melody. Now actually, the instrument that I used for the melody is one of the most important details. I ended up getting I was not able to use the YouTube content ID because of Common Sounds, and I think it's because of this instrument uses samples. There's 2 different samples and they blend together, and you've got all the controls and everything that you want here. So let's take a listen to this one instrument so you can hear that from the beginning. So it's just very repetitive. There's very subtle variation in the rhythm section, almost no variation anywhere else. And so, it's a nice loop that I was listening to over and over again, and I felt like this was pretty solid. So I felt like this is where I wanted to go with it. Let's take a quick look at, let's see, we've covered the replica. Oh yeah, scope, just for fun. This is a really cool thing. If you've never seen this before, let me hit play here on this one track because that's the only one that it's on. But it gives you the ability to visualize your music. Now I don't remember why I got that. I was doing some kind of, I think I was looking at the waveform when I was trying to create the sound, and I zoomed in and really got all scientific about it and stuff, and it was kind of fun. But it was a fun little side thing. It has absolutely nothing to do with the music. The ozone we'll cover in another video, which those are equalizers to streamline, you know, kind of make sure each sound blends together. And then you've got battery for the percussions, and then you've got the different complete control instruments that are being used. So there's 2 instruments, 2 different percussions, and then a whole lot of sound effect going on in that replica thing. So at that point, that covers the loop section of this. It's pretty straightforward, really. I did want to go over really quickly before I leave the loop section that there was a challenge to the timing of how I played this music. Each key had to happen at the very specific moment. I needed to hit that key right as the rhythm felt right. Because listen what happens if I don't. And then I'll shift without the timing being right. It's almost hard for me to... That's just me hitting different keys, which you can't see. And the echo. You gotta manage that echo, otherwise it just muddies everything up. So that was actually one of the most challenging things, is me finding a way to work with that rhythm, and the rhythm actually defined the sound. Now, it could be Massive X that caused the content ID restriction or limit where I can't have that, but we'll try it out in my next song and we'll see what happens, trying to use Massive X with enough variation and no other sounds that require samples. I don't think battery, even though these are samples, would be the reason, because they're just drums, but I've got a lot to learn, and it wasn't very clear as to why I wasn't able to get that restriction, or why I had that strike, I guess, is basically how I see it. Alright, well, let's get into the arrangement now. I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and let's just take a look here. Really all I'm doing is taking the loop, if it's not obvious, and took the same basic pieces. I did create 3 variations on the rhythm because I created, that's kind of where I wanted to have some differences in my sound, and so I kept that same rhythm instrument using Massive X on all 3 of those. And this one here on the top one, I tweaked it by adding some DJ controls, which you'll see here. For example, I can change the frequency. This is basically very similar to what I have on my DJ controller, just right here in this interface. And there's some compression on here, which just helps keep the kick drums that are built into this instrument from being a little too overwhelming, because on a subwoofer it's intense. And so then we've got this is the main rhythm. This is the one where I kind of tweak it to give it that variation. We've got that main rhythm, and then I've got what I called the bridge rhythm, which again has sort of a slight adjustment, and I think in that one all I did was just change the parameters of the actual instrument itself so it sounded slightly different, and then broke down the claps and melody and percussions a little bit. Again, percussions are nothing more than just the shaker. So let's just take a listen to how this is broken out. I'm going to close this up so you can see the whole thing. Whoops. And here we go. Whoops, I got it silenced so that you only hear that one. Sorry about that. Let's wait till that settles. Always got to wait till that dies down. That's been one of the trickiest things with this song. And here we go. So we got the melody repeating a couple of times, then we bring in the claps and the perks. And then after a minute, a few seconds, we'll bring in the tweaked rhythm. And you can watch the DJ controller here. adjusting that frequency. Alright, so that's the main part of the loop. Now you'll notice this, we bring the melody in, we get the main part of the loop, I guess, without the melody, and then this is the main part right here. Listen to that. That is definitely tricky. Alright, so as you can see, I really have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of putting all these pieces of the puzzle together until they fit, and then you just have to play it from the beginning to make sure it all sounds great. There may be a certain point when you can get it just right, but if you don't get it right, like I was saying, it just turns into mud. This is really just me kind of playing around by taking that loop and breaking it apart, and then listen to each sections. There's like different rules and theories around how many times you should repeat something. So you can see that the main loop is where you have all 4 of these. And then that's really only happening 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars throughout the entire song. Is the main loop is only 5. I don't know if it's full 5 bars, but see if I can zoom in enough here. Because I had it marked in minutes, I think I can right click and say time base bars. So it's more than 5 bars. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. It was just really just, I go by feel on all this stuff. I mean, everything I do is by feel. I'm 90% of the time I can't explain what I'm doing. I'm just feeling it out. And that's exactly what happened here. This does seem interesting to play. Let's see if I can actually play the bridge section from the start here. Zoom in enough that I think I'm not going to have anything messed up. Let's try it. And that all I did on that instrument, I should say, is over here, where I just tweaked these parameters so that they were a little tighter, and I'd set up my MIDI controller so I could do that. And that's it. I mean, it's really just kind of feeling things out. I guess the last thing I want to say is, gosh, am I really teaching anything? I hope. I mean, this is just really all about feeling the music, being patient enough to work with it. Just because it sounds like crap doesn't mean you give up. Be willing to start over if you have to and listen to it all the way through if that's what it takes, because that's literally what I had to do. The last piece of this is I wanted to have the song end and just you can hear the echo fade into the darkness. So I have absolutely nothing on this bar here, or this clip. It's just completely empty. And that gave me that last few seconds for the shakers to wrap up. I don't know if this is going to come out good or not, but let's try it. And so that allowed me to record, like export the song and include those tiny little smithereens of shakers going out, kind of fading out as they go. So in the next video, I'll talk about what we did with the equalizers, and we'll go into why I modified those the way I did. But that was part of really prepping the song for distribution and making sure that it didn't sound muddy at all. So if you made it through all that, you definitely deserve a random act of cuteness. Aww. Well, if you're interested in getting a sneak peek into what I'm working on, you can check out my blog, tech-multiverse.com. And you can also check me out at t13e.com, where I'll give you the ability to check out my my first song that you can stream on major platforms. Thanks for watching.